It's a day that most teenagers can't wait for, and a day their parents wish would never come. The day their sweet, fragile little baby gets their driver's license. Welcome back to Motormouth, the show where I tell you what to do with authority because I've taken the time to research the topic. Mostly. The sweet release of automotive freedom is one of the greatest joys in a teenager's life. I can still vividly remember the day I got my driver's license. That first day driving, unassisted by a parent or an overserved, less than cautious uncle. In my top 10 best days ever. My parents, however, had their worries, as most parents do, and for good reason. One of the most dangerous things, statistically, that a human can do is drive a car on public roads. The numbers on this one are somewhat murky, but somewhere between 41 and 62% of teen deaths are attributed to motor vehicle accidents. And traffic accidents fall just behind suicide in the overall causes of death in America at over 40,000 deaths per year. So, the burning question is, what car will keep your child safest? Well, it might not be what you think, and here's why. Most parents want their little Skylar or Madison cocooned in a hulking behemoth of steel and airbags. In the case that when they get inevitably into an accident, the metal stadium on wheels will protect them from harm. And once the 37 airbags have been deflated, they'll be able to pluck their perfectly unscratched child from the wreck and lock them in a Nerf-laden hyperbaric chamber until they turn 18. The sentiment and logic in this is good and makes a lot of sense. The bigger vehicle will plow over the smaller vehicle in a crash. However, if the big vehicle that you're thinking of strapping your child into is a truck or SUV, you have a bigger problem on your hands. Many fatalities on the road don't simply occur with one vehicle hitting another vehicle. They occur with loss of control and rollovers. Airbags may help mitigate injuries resulting from an impact, but they're only designed to help with a single impact, not the multiple impacts caused by a rollover. Large trucks and SUVs are the most prone to these types of accidents, and it's much rarer occurrence for a passenger car to roll. Larger and especially taller vehicles are much more difficult to drive than smaller, lower ones, especially when it comes to evasive maneuvering. So steer your kid away from that Suburban. This brings up another important point: distractions. If you put your child into said Suburban, they'll effectively have the carrying capacity of a small bus. They might be the one asked to drive their 6 friends to the Tasty Freeze after the homecoming game. And have you ever heard what a car filled with a half dozen excited teenagers sound like? It's probably one of the most distracting situations in the world. Kim is in the midst of breaking up with Kevin. He's crying, making Andy call him a little bitch because he wants to get with Kim, and he wants to impress her, and Rory is trying to tell Andy to stop because seriously, WTF dude, he's your best friend, which actually ends up hurting Andy because he thought Rory was his best friend, and Dylan, he could care less because he's trying to roll the window down to moon the girls in the car at the next stoplight because he actually has a crush on one of them, and he can't seem to figure out a way to tell her his true feelings any more than he can figure out how to remove the child's safety lock off the window. Okay, so I just described that. Imagine how distracting that would be in person. So a sedan is great, but a coupe is better. It's not like little Brittany has to have a back seat for a newborn's car seat or anything. Unless she does, in which case, you probably have bigger problems to deal with. Speaking of distractions, let's stop talking about this and start talking about mitigating those, okay? And forget about Brit. If you're over the age of 35, there's a very small possibility that you were driving as a teenager with the ability to call or text anyone while you're driving. You could simply focus on the task of driving in hand, without the danger of someone texting you that Kim broke up with Andy and is back with Kevin. But these days, most kids have a smartphone in their pocket, and the urge to check it constantly is almost as bad as their parents. The best way to get your progeny off the phone and onto the wheel is to give their hands something more to do, and I don't mean trying to get to second base. Skip the automatic transmission. Go with a genuine 5, 4, or 6-speed manual. I'd actually recommend the 6-speed because it's actually a lot more shifting. You'd be surprised. Now you might say, a 6-speed? Don't those only come in sports cars? And I'd say to you, I can't actually hear you, so if you want to say something to me, leave it in the comments down below and I'll be sure to answer you. Also, 2, 6-speeds are also what come in sporty cars. Now what do I mean by that? Sporty cars are just what they sound like. They're somewhat sporty. They're great for teens because they usually have all the benefits that we talked about earlier, and they usually have just enough power to pass safely. Now I know what you're thinking. You don't want your little Zachary in a Mustang doing donuts in the Tasty Freeze parking lot to impress his buddies and accidentally run over a toddler notching on a dilly bar. Nor do you want your little Asher to launch his Corvette into a phone pole while drag racing Zachary's Mustang. But having just enough power to be safe is a good thing. Put simply, any car you put your kid in should be at least described as peppy or zippy or, oh, I didn't know it could do that. A safe car for a teen should never be described as either sluggish or anemic. It should also not be described as, holy shit, or is this street legal? Generally, if it's a car and it was built in the last 20 years, it should have at least 125 and 200 horsepower. If it was built between 1985 and 2000, it should have at least 100 horsepower. This is probably the best range between weight and power for the given teenager to be able to drive responsibly and not get into too much trouble, while also being able to effectively maneuver amongst most traffic. So, armed with this information, I've come up with a few recommendations for perfect first cars for your teens based on your budget. In the $20,000 and up range, the best car for the job is the 2019 Civic Si Coupe. At around $25,000, the Civic Si has great fuel economy, excellent safety and reliability, and it's just fun and stylish enough to keep your little squirt happy and safe. In the $10,000 to $20,000 range, I'd recommend the 2013 to 2016 Mini Cooper S. The Cooper S might be the most useful and nimble one of the bunch. Plenty of cargo space for a teen with a drum kit, matched with nearly unrivaled handling. This also makes it one of the most likely cars to be borrowed by a parent. In the $5,000 to $10,000 category is the Volvo C30 T5 R Design. This one isn't as ubiquitous as the Honda or the Mini, but when you find one, you'll be more than pleased. Volvo is so safety oriented that they're the only manufacturer that has a crash test for moose. Seriously, they have a moose collision test. The C30 also has a peppy 5-cylinder turbo engine, and while this might go a bit above and beyond the preferred power ratings, it's more than making up for that in the fact that it's a Volvo, alright? And finally, in the sub $5,000 category is the 2008 to 2011 Ford Focus ZX3. It's safe, it's cheap, it's Ford parts, it's front-wheel drive, it's a hatchback, get in a manual, what more could you want? Now I could take a crack at the sub $1,000 cars, but they're just too many. What are your thoughts? What car would you get your little teen that's under a G? Let me know in the comments down below, and give this video a like if you got something out of it. And remember, if you get your kid a manual transmission car, make sure they're not granny shifting and double clutching like they should.